Now that we've looked at the burgeoning colonies of Jamestown and Plymouth Rock, it's time to turn our attention to the next major colony in America. This one is special because we're going to continue tracing our Christian roots, and the next stop on the list is Massachusetts Bay Colony. We need to go back to England and see what is happening there to have a full understanding of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. King James I had died in 1625, and his son Charles I ascends to the throne. As bad as James was in persecuting the Puritans and the Separatists, he was nowhere near as bad as his son would be. Remember, the difference between the two groups was that the Separatists didn't think that the church could be changed from within anymore, and so many of them were driven out of England or had moved to Plymouth Colony. The Puritans, on the other hand, they believed that the church could be transformed from within by returning to the pure doctrine of the Bible. However, once Charles was king, many Puritans began losing hope for the reformation of the Church of England. That reason, coupled with the French Huguenots being crushed by the French Catholics in 1828, the Spanish armies overrunning the Calvinists in Bohemia and Rhineland, the Protestant forces in Germany having enjoyed a string of uninterrupted defeats for 10 years, as you can well imagine, the Protestants in England had begun to think that their prospect of reforming the church was looking quite grim. Charles had commissioned Archbishop William Laud to purge England from all those who had refused to bend the knee to the Church of England. Those who were caught criticizing the church were often branded and sentenced to life in prison. Oftentimes, many of the punishments included the cutting off of the tips of the ears, the slitting of the nostrils. Heavy fines were also used to clamp down upon the opposition to Charles's church. On top of all of this, Charles had married Henrietta Maria of France, who was a Catholic. So, to many of the Puritans of England, hope had seemed as though it was lost. If you know anything about John Winthrop, you would likely remember that he was a pious, zealous man who would rabidly defend the scripture, but what you may not know is that he was a completely different person when he was young. John Winthrop in his younger years was far more interested in women and in status than he was in anything else. By the age of 16, he was attending Trinity College, and by the age of 18, in 1606, he was a lawyer. Yet, despite all his success and fame that he had achieved at a young age, he still felt empty, as though there was a void inside of him. At some point in his life, he discovered what he was missing, and that was God. He converted and turned over his life to God, which would be evident in the type of colony that he was intent on establishing later on in his life. The Puritans, including John Winthrop, had been speaking of journeying to the New World and establishing a colony in New England. They were emboldened to do so, particularly since the Pilgrim Fathers had proven that it could be done so in Plymouth Colony. In 1629, at the age of 40, John Winthrop and a number of other young Puritans had assumed control of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which, by the way, this would be groundbreaking for the cause of the Puritans because most of the time they were always poor and needy. They were needing loans by wealthy businessmen to sponsor their voyage, which they would have to pay back. As Ben Hart states in his book, officers of the company would be selected solely from the immigrants of New England. The stockholders would agree to sell all the shares of the stock to the settlers, and, most important, the colonists would take with them on the voyage the king's charter for the company. It is fully and faithfully agreed amongst us that we be ready in our persons to embark for the said plantation by the 1st of March, to pass the seas under God's protection, to inhabit and to continue New England, provided always that before the last September next, the whole government will come together with the patent for the said plantation be first and by an order of the court legally transferred and will remain with us upon said plantation. This was the key provision in the compact, the writing of which came as naturally to the non-separating Puritans as it had to the Mayflower Pilgrims. It would permit the Massachusetts Bay Colony to operate as an independent commonwealth. So, the Puritans were able to obtain their transferable charter, and in February of 1630, John Winthrop was unanimously elected governor, and they set sail for the New World. And unlike the other voyages to the New World, in terms of traveling anyway, it went off without a hitch. Now, you have to understand the mindset that's going through the Puritans right now. Some of the Puritans thought that it was God's plan for them to leave and start anew in the New World, and others thought that it was God's plan for them to stay behind and to wage war against Charles, which we will actually get into in a later video. Those that believed that it was God's plan for them to go, they believed that they would establish a colony as a model of Christian charity. In a sermon by John Winthrop, the famous quote that America would be a city upon a hill is where that quote had come from. And to be precise, the full quote is, "We shall be a city upon a hill, and the eyes of the world would be upon us." This quote, "a city upon a hill," has been quoted by several presidents in the past, including JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and even Barack Hussein Excuse me, my bias came out. Anyway, the phrase was popularized by Ronald Reagan as a nod to American exceptionalism, though originally when it was used by John Winthrop, he just meant it as a role to show the world of what a truly Christian community would be like. He wanted to make the new colony a success so that others would in turn copy their example. Other prominent figures who would join the colony with John Winthrop, or later after its establishment, would be the preacher Thomas Hooker, John Cotton, Richard Mather, and Anne Hutchinson. Now, the Puritans believe the vital key to the success of the mission was unity. The Puritans believed that God had called them out of the wilderness, so to speak, or Britain, and like the Israelites of the Old Testament, had brought them to the Promised Land. Both John Cotton and John Winthrop knew that working together in unity was going to be a key element to their survival. And to quote Ben Hart once again, "But," said Cotton, "God keeps his commitments. What he hath planted, he will maintain." For to trust in God's promises was the essence of the covenantal relationship. "We are entered into a covenant with him for his work," Winthrop told his people. And all who went agreed that God would in turn honor their commitment to his ways. They knew that there would be hardships, but, as Cotton put it, "The Lord hath given us hearts to overlook them all, as if we were carried upon eagle's wings." This was the first time people en masse agreed to establish a society wholly on Christian principles. Now, I know that there are those nowadays who would like to jump all over this and poo-poo all over this colony, and would like to point to it as forced Christianity on those who lived in the colony. However, let's assuage some of those feelings, shall we? First off, yes, in this colony, the only people who were allowed to vote was restricted to Christians. And while by today's standards, that might seem counter to everything that America stands for in this society, this would be a vital step towards religious freedom and many of the other freedoms that we enjoy today. How, might you ask, would this lead to religious freedom and other freedoms that we enjoy today? Well, because there were other people in this colony who did not like these rules either, or certain rules that they had to abide by either. And they would either leave of their own volition or would be driven out, ultimately leading to the creation of other colonies and states whose future state constitutions would help facilitate the creation of our federal constitution later in 1787. More on that in later videos. Secondly, yes, you can't build a colony with the specific intent of being a model of Christian charity and not know what you're signing up for. No one was forced to go to the New World and plant the Massachusetts Bay Colony. No one was forced to live there. But if you did live there, you'd have to abide by the laws that were put in place regardless of your feelings. Because the Puritans had moved the charter from England to the New World, they had to set up a functioning government, and it took about 14 years for them to evolve from a mere trading company to a fully functioning commonwealth. However, by 1632, a mere 2 years after they had landed, they had already established a democratic system of voting where the governor, his deputy, and the assistants would all be determined by a general election rather than being appointed by a board or by bloodline. Again, as backwards as some may think that this might have been, that only Christians could vote, the fact remains that they were some of the most advanced in terms of a republican democracy, that they instituted a voting system at all to appoint their leaders rather than their leaders being appointed by bloodline. This is exactly what they were running away from in England in the first place. And to quote Ben Hart one final time in this video, The movement toward political equity, meaning one man, one vote principle, in New England stands as a stark contrast to the aristocratic characteristics of New York, Maryland, the Carolinas, Georgia, and even Virginia, where feudal institutions were transplanted and remained, at least partially, until the American Revolution. It was in New England soil that the seeds of liberty were planted and took firm root and eventually spread to the other regions of the country. The Massachusetts Bay Colony even had the House of Assistants and the House of Deputies that was created over a squabble in the court over Goody Sherman's pig and Robert Keene, who was a rich merchant who had taken the wandering pig back to his property. These two dueling political bodies were created as separate branches of government as to not to give too much power to one political body. This was the first bicameral legislative body that was here in America, which, in my opinion, would plant the seeds for the Founding Fathers to see the merit and the need to divide the power among differing branches of government. But you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Hello there! So I just wanted to give a quick update and let you know that the videos will be returning to the regularly 2-week scheduled intervals that I've had normally in the past. I was just a little preoccupied for the past probably month and a half. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I will be returning to the 2-week schedule, at least until the summertime, which I have still yet to announce. Look, my hair kind of going crazy. But anyway, I still yet to announce why I will be taking a break in the summer, but I promise it will be for a good reason as to why I am taking the break in the summertime. So please just bear with me. I will let you know in due time. But it is very important. And look, there's a hint. You could probably see it right there. You see that? There's something that looks almost like a jail. It's for, you know, something that's, you know, like a little person that goes into there. And no, it's not a jail, okay? But anyway, I just want to let you know that I will be taking a summer break. So don't fear. I will be back, but it is for good reason because well, I will be one very tired man during that time. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you ahead of time for your understanding during during this transition in my life, as as we prepare for for the changes that are about to take place. And once I'm through that, I will definitely let you know when I will be able to come back. But again, that's going to be a little bit down the road in July, leading up into it, probably into August as well. But I do want to say thank you so much. For me, I never really thought that I would have. I know it's small, but it's okay. I'm okay with that. I am okay with humble beginnings, and the 32 people who have decided to subscribe to my channel, I appreciate it. I really do. And even if you don't necessarily agree with me all the time, that's 100% okay. I can man, that is really bothering me. But no, that's okay. I understand if you don't agree with me all the time. That's okay. But hey, look, I have my opinions, and I'm sure that you have yours, but I give you reasons as to why I believe the way I believe. And as to the important formation of our country and the founding thereof, and why it's important to defend our freedoms in our nation, and why it's important to know the history behind each one of those decisions that have taken place. So I'm very thankful for each one of you that have decided to subscribe to me, and I hope that there will be more in the future. But I'll catch you guys in the next video. I hope you have a good one.